Did you know you can talk to pelicans in Sonic Unleashed, or that there's an electric chair in Sonic Adventure? You probably didn't, because in most Sonic levels we're just trying to get to the end as fast as we can, only deviating from the main path if we know there's an alternate route or a secret somewhere. But what about the little areas that just kind of exist for the sake of existing, or the little details we run right by? So today we're gonna slow down and take a look at these areas, starting with Sonic Adventure. Let's first take a look at the first level of the game, Emerald Coast. This level starts us off on the beach, which most players just run right through, but it's actually quite a nice area if you just stop and take a look. You start off next to what appears to be some kind of hotel or resort. There's even some ring containers here to reward you for looking around. You can stop and take a look at the seagulls or relax on one of these chairs. There's also this nice little island just a little bit into the water that you can go on. There's nothing really special here, but that's kind of what makes the area special. It just exists to make the world feel more alive and open. Also, have you ever stopped to appreciate the footprints left in the sand on the beach? One thing that's interesting in this starting area is that for some reason you can homing attack these umbrellas. This whole starting area just feels like a really nice place to just relax. In the next area on this bridge, you can actually jump under the bridge and look around. There's not really anything special to do under here, but for some reason seeing the underside of pathways and seeing these pillars that hold them up is just really interesting to me and makes the whole area feel more real. You can also see something like this at the base of the tower in the halfway point of the level. Near the end of the level, under the main pathway, you can find another nice spot to relax. Unlike the umbrellas from earlier, these ones are notably not destructible. Also, Tails started doing this, and that's funny. Next, let's take a look at Casinopolis. This level is structured so differently from other Sonic levels. In a normal run of this level, you're just gonna go straight to the pinball machine, then go down into the sewers, rinse, repeat until you have enough rings to get the Chaos Emerald. But have you ever stopped to just look around the lobby of the casino? There's all these slot machines that you probably missed, and you probably even missed that these three for some reason have a different logo than the other ones. There's a shower room here that you might have already seen for like some reason. Like, why is there a shower in the middle of a casino? Is that like a normal thing for casinos? But anyways, did you know that you can actually take a shower here? There's also a fountain in this lobby you can stop at, and for some reason the water on the wall appears to be moving sideways instead of going down. There's also this giant anchor on the floor that connects to a pirate ship in the wall for some reason. You can also jump along the tops of the different entrances in the lobby. There's not really anything to do up here, but I still think it's pretty cool that you can go up here. The lobby of Casinopolis honestly feels like it was just supposed to be a seamless part of the open hub. Next, let's take a look at Red Mountain. So by complete accident I fell here, and there's actually a piece of cliff that you can stand on. It's kind of weird because you can just walk right through the cliff wall.
He's going over that cliff! Ah!
Nearby, there's a more purposeful looking ledge that you can land on. It feels like the kind of area that should have a collectible for you to find here. Later into the level, there's this weird ledge that just kind of pushes you off. Not really sure why it does that. Then when you're in the underground part of the level, you can find a prison cell with an electric chair in it. It's honestly pretty crazy that that's here. It does make me wonder if Eggman was the one operating this chair, or if there's something else darker here. A little bit further into the level, you can find these prison cells with these guys in it. Who are they? What are they? Why are they here? All questions that will never be answered because they got left behind when the lava rises. They're all dead now. Well, we can find one more a little bit later into the level, so I guess that makes this guy the last of his species. Or at least the last of this group.
Me editing this like a few months later, I got delayed because of like college and stuff, but I realized there's actually more of these blue guys here, so there's more than one of them left.
Then, right at the very end of the level, you can find these giant spiders running around. As you'll see me talk about more throughout the rest of this video, having these neutral NPCs running around that you can't even really interact with just makes the whole world feel so much more alive. Like there's this whole world of other things going on outside of just what Sonic's doing. The last level from Sonic Adventure 1 we'll be talking about today is Lost World. Right near the beginning of this level, there's a snake fountain. It's pretty cool. Though specifically, the water coming out of its mouth is kind of the most dated looking water in the entire game. If you stop and look back at the first spike pit, you can find the world's most useless speed up power up, because immediately after this part is a slow puzzle area. After said puzzle area, you get to run out onto this cliff. It's really easy to just run past this area without taking a look at the view, but this one cliffside in this one level probably has the coolest background in the entire game. It's just so vast and awe-inspiring and mysterious, and it's only on this one cliffside. It's really easy to just run right past without taking it in. After this water slide section, it looks like there might be an area under the water, but nope, you just fall right through the floor. After that section, there's this little temple inside of the temple you're already in. There's not really anything too special going on in this room, but it just has this specific vibe that's hard to describe. It's so mysterious, and it feels calming in the middle of this tense level. Maybe it's the sunlight coming in through the ceiling. Lastly, there's the last room of the level, which you can't even explore on your first playthrough because it it automatically ends the level when you reach it. But on any replay of the level, you can actually stop in this area, and it even plays its own music. And you can get a close look at the perfect chaos mural for yourself. That's all for Sonic Adventure right now. If you're wondering why I didn't go over any hub areas, I'm really trying to focus on like the main levels right now. Comments down below if you'd be interested in a video about Sonic hub areas, and with that, let's get on to the first level of Sonic Adventure 2 we'll be looking at is the iconic City Escape. One thing that's in basically every Sonic and Shadow level is that you can just pick up these random weird objects and throw them around. In City Escape, it's tires. I'm not gonna point out every poster in the level because there's a lot, but this playing SA2 as habit forming is a really fun one. Also, I always really liked this Item Box Expo one for some reason. Like, I don't know, just ever since the first time I saw it, it just like looks cool. When you're out on the wide streets of the city, if you try and go left or right on the spots you're not supposed to turn in, there will actually be these giant yellow arrows trying to point you back in the right direction. Then after you're running down the streets for a little bit, there's this little open area. There's not really anything here aside from this one burger ad, but I don't know, for some reason this area just always stuck out in my mind as something memorable. Shortly after this area, you arrive in this big green grassy park. You're meant to run through here and get to the other side pretty quickly, but I don't know, it just feels like a nice spot to just sit back and relax. Also, apparently the trees here are actually just 2D PNGs that turn to face the camera. Then at the end of the level, you land in this big open area right in front of the gold ring. There's really nothing to look at here, but it feels like the kind of area where something should be hidden. I remember when I first played this level, I ran around for like a minute trying to see if there was anything hidden here. Though, the inside of the shops here appeared to just be a 2D PNG, maybe even a real life picture. Next, let's take a quick look at Metal Harbor. I was trying to see if I could interact with this building over here, but no, you just fall through it. But one thing that's interesting is that boost pad sound played as I fell through it. However, one seemingly background thing that you can jump on is these little barrel tower things. I wonder if this was an intentional shortcut or if it was just an accident because all the barrels are interactable. There's also this little garage area that always stuck out in my mind. Now, I'm not going to be talking about all the areas with these Mystic Melody ruins because those are technically alternate paths and I'm not really focusing on that in this video. But I don't know, it just has kind of a unique vibe and I wanted to point it out still. Lastly, for Sonic Adventure 2, let's take a look at Shadow's last level, Final Chase. You may have noticed that I'm already talking about less areas than I did in Sonic Adventure 1. That's because from Sonic Adventure 2 onwards, a lot of the extra areas are really there for a specific purpose rather than just kind of existing there. Usually the openness in levels comes from alternate paths rather than these random little areas. Pretty early on in Final Chase, there's this little random side area that you can jump onto. It does technically have a distinct purpose with having the Chow Box here, but similarly to the garage area in Metal Harbor, this one just always stuck out in my mind for some reason as kind of a random little area. Also in this little section, you can pick up the cube.
Before time began, there was the cube.
A few minutes into the level, you can jump over these gravity tubes and land on this piece of level geometry. There is a little phoenix here you can collect, so it was clearly intentional. Next, let's take a look at... Unfortunately, I couldn't really find much in Sonic Heroes, but I did find this one little thing in Seaside Hill. So the level starts off with Team Sonic automatically running over this path, but when you gain control of the characters and turn around, the path you ran on is gone. Next, let's take a look at... In Shadow the Hedgehog, let's start off with Cryptic Castle. So an interesting thing in this level is the Chow Room. It's actually mandatory for you to go through here to progress the level, but it's likely that most people didn't stop and interact with the Chows. If you walk up to them, they'll get happy, and if you're a heartless monster, you can punch them and make them cry. It's fairly simple, but it's really cool that you can actually interact with them. Every Sonic level is going to have you interacting with enemies, and lots of levels have you interacting with your allies. So it's really cool when you get the few levels and games where you can interact with more neutral NPCs. Next, let's take a look at Space Gadget. As you move through the interior of the Ark, you'll eventually come across this power generator area. And if you take the lower path, you can get a closer look at the components of the power generator, including these giant laser things for some reason. This lower area is technically like the punishment for if you fail the upper path, but I don't know, I've always thought there was just something cool about this little room. Next, let's take a look at... In Sonic 06, let's start off with Wave Ocean, specifically Shadow's Wave Ocean. Near the end of the level, you come across this big beach area. To get through the level, all you have to do is enter the cave, find the switch, and then the gates open for you to move on. But this area has so much more optional stuff that you can just run around and do. You can fight enemies all over this giant beach area, and there's these round, flat-top hills that you can jump on to once again fight more enemies, or use a lightspeed dash around this rock and glitch out. There's also a completely optional car you can drive around here, and a completely optional boardwalk you can go on. Then, in the last section of the level, you get on this hovercraft and you're supposed to go straight to the goal ring. But you can just drive around this whole ocean area, shooting at rocks and docks, driving up this really steep rock from Sonic's version of the level, and the best part, getting stuck upside down when you're trying to drive up this ramp. I actually really like Sonic 06 by the way, but this is still funny. Next, let's take a look at Shadow's last level, Dusty Desert. Similarly to the end of Wave Ocean, you start off in a hovercraft in a wide open area. You're supposed to follow these towers to lead you to the entrance to the ruins, but you can also just drive around the desert all you want. You can find some cool fossils, this cool and vibesy oasis over here, or if you drive around enough, you can just find Sonic's version of Dusty Desert. I actually ended up breaking the hovercraft here, so I was just stuck on the beginning of Sonic's part of the level. At least Shadow can aura farm here. Next, let's take a look at Sonic Unleashed. Let's start from the beginning with Windmill Isle. With Sonic Unleashed introducing the modern boost formula, it's really easy to just boost right past all these neat little details. Pretty early on, you can see this cactus restaurant, or you can take a look at the menu for the neighboring restaurant. In this level specifically though, there kept being weird issues with my controls when I would have the camera pointed in different directions. Like I would press up, but I'll go to the left or right instead of going forwards. You can walk up to this pelican who will try and point you back towards the main direction of the level. After walking past a nice looking little restaurant, you can find another pelican on the top of these stairs who tries to point you back towards the main level. However, you can also see that the pelicans aren't just pointing at the main route of the level. There's also a little restaurant you can walk back into, where you can find a moon medal, some relaxing shade, and a nice view. I'm not going to cover all of Sonic Unleashed's really weird moon medal placements, but I wanted to point this one out because it just has a nice vibe. Such a nice vibe, in fact, that this robot tried to follow me in. A bit later into the level, there's a quick time event which then leads you to running around on top of this tower. But apparently you can just take this zipline right back up and wander around on the tower as much as you want. As you continue through the level, you can find another pelican who is unfortunately just barely outside of an invisible wall, so you can't talk to him. However, luckily to make up for this, you can find another pelican who points at this red ring. Next, let's take a look at Rooftop Run. Right at the beginning of the level, we can see something that no other Sonic game does. There's humans in the main level, not just in the open world. I mean, Sonic and the Black Knight also kinda does this, but I don't know, they just have different vibes. In this starting area, you can see a guy watering his tree. That's kinda neat. Shortly after this, you can find this little gate thing that you can jump on top of, or like kind of inside of. Continuing forwards, you can see how kind of weird the door placement in this city is. Like, why is that door so high up off the ground with no steps? I also noticed a little section right here where I'm not entirely sure what's happening, but there's some kind of rendering issue. Stopping in this little shopping center area, you'll notice that people are talking without moving their mouths. Which makes sense from a developing standpoint because, like, that would be such wasted resources since no one's gonna be stopping and looking at these guys. You can also see that Sonic has some fans in Spagonia. There are people cheering you on. Also, the interior of these shops appears to just be a 2D PNG. Moving on ahead, you can find a guy reading a newspaper, but if you look closely, the box art for Sonic 06 is actually on the newspaper. Have you ever stopped and paid attention to the birds here? They're pretty nice. There's also a couple here looking out over the view of the city. Having real human people in these cities makes the world feel so much more alive and real and immersive. There's lives going on in this city and on this planet outside of just what the player can see. Like, these two people are just going about their day, walking around the town, looking over the views, and then suddenly... Next we reach this fountain, where we can find more people cheering Sonic on. There's also more of the same PNG stores, and this one girl just staring at the wall. By going backwards here, it's the only way to explore this little tower. Normally after the skydiving section here, there's an automated section where you run forwards, but now we can go back and take a closer look at this tower with this moody lighting. Also near the entrance to this tower, there's two dash pads pointing in opposite directions that the player would normally never interact with. In another spot, a little bit later into the level, there's this giant fountain you can see. Have you ever stopped and looked at this fountain? Next, when you're running along the rooftops, you can find this store that's on a rooftop for some reason. Do you think they got much business? For some reason, the writing on these dairy posters is backwards. Somehow, despite taking nearly 15 minutes in this level looking at all this stuff, I only got a D rank instead of the lowest, an E rank. Lastly, for Sonic Unleashed, let's take a look at Arid Sands. Here, right at the start of the level, we can see more people cheering Sonic on. There's also two kids watching Sonic from on top of this bridge. These two are way too nonchalant for these bullets going right past them. A little bit further into the level, you can find some more people talking and this one reading a book. One of the stands here, instead of being a different language, just has Spice typed out in a fancy font to kind of look like another language. You can find this one guy waving Sonic around a turn, kind of like one of those baseball baseball guys. A little bit ahead, you can find this one guy talking to himself, or I guess now he's talking to Sonic, but you get what I mean. Going on a bit ahead, you can jump on this roof, which then you can jump from the roof onto this bridge where people were cheering Sonic on. As you continue through the level, you can find this market with more people around, including this one girl who just stares blankly straight into the camera. In the next area, along this walkway, you can see some people walking in place. This was probably because it would give the effect that they're walking by as you run past them when you're boosting, but when you stop and look at them, it looks pretty funny. You can actually see even more people walking in place in this 2D section. Near the end of the city area, you can find another guy reading the Sonic 06 newspaper, and you pass some more people walking in place as you leave. The last people you see in the level before leaving the city are these two cheering you on. After leaving the city, you can find these unmanned stands, which are precariously close to this cliff. Oh, well there's my E rank. Now let's take a look at... For Sonic and the Black Knight, let's start with Camelot Castle. Throughout a lot of Sonic and the Black Knight's levels, you'll see these townspeople. They'll either stand or walk in a circle when they're not being interacted with. If you get close, they'll cheer, and if there's enemies around, they'll cower. Due to Sonic and the Black Knight's extremely limited left-to-right movement, there's not as many places to go out and explore, but there's still some little things I noticed. A little bit into the level, there's this optional wooden, thing you can backflip into, and you can try and save this person, or accidentally hit them when you're fighting the enemies. Oops. It would get very repetitive very fast if I pointed out every single person that you can meet, because they all kind of behave the same. But having these interactable, neutral NPCs in all of these levels is really cool. It makes the whole world feel so alive. Though I do want to mention that at the beginning of Deep Woods, there are these chickens. Chickens are pretty epic. There's also this one townsperson who appears to be having a little bit of trouble with this fence. Before moving on, let's take a look at Knight's Passage. In this level, it's almost hard to miss because whoever you're playing as will always point out that there's rats right here. But have you ever actually stopped and looked at the rats? I don't know, they just look kind of funny and cute in like a charming way. Lastly, near the end of the level, there's this gorgeous skybox that the camera focuses on. But have you ever looked down and noticed that the ocean is red now? Next, let's take a look at... For Sonic Generations, let's first take a look at Speed Highway. In this level, shortly before the section where you run down the building, there's this rooftop which will infinitely spawn cop speeders. A little bit later into the level, there's this rooftop you can jump onto. If you stay here too long though, cop speeders will show up to arrest you for being out of bounds. Then, in City Escape, that park area that I mentioned before is much bigger now. There's this neat-looking performance area and these picnic benches that look nice to relax at. And the grassy area is much bigger now. It's so big that you can just boost and drift around in it. It's not even like an extra path or anything, it's just there for the sake of being there, which I find really cool. Just like with the Adventure 2 version, I'm not going to point out every single poster, but it is pretty cool that there's these wanted and missing posters of characters that at the time hadn't been seen in a long time. Actually, we still haven't seen Bean and Bark in quite a while. Then, in that last section by the goal ring, there's actually more to see now. Tails apparently has a pizza place, Amy has a market, Blaze has a coffee shop. In fact, her coffee shop is so successful that she has two of the same coffee shop right next to each other. In Seaside Hill, the same weird thing from Sonic Heroes returns, where the level begins with Sonic running along this path, but then when you gain control of Sonic and turn around, the path is no longer there. A bit later into the level, there's actually this cave you can find on the beach. It's technically an alternate path, but it's so far out of the way and has such a unique vibe to it that I still want to include it. Later in the level, right after the sea turtle area, you can end up on this cliff, which is definitely the best spot in the whole level to get a good look at the view. It's a shame Sonic Generations for some reason doesn't have free camera control like all the games from Unleashed and before had. Next in Rooftop Run, you can see the return of the 2D PNG interior of these shops. However, what you don't see is the return of people in the level, which is a little bit disappointing. There is this pretty nice flower bed you can go into though. A little bit further along, you can see that they still have weird shops on top of rooftops. Like, do these get any business? One thing that's kind of weird only when you slow down is that the whole level has this confetti everywhere, right? To make it look like a celebration. So it's kind of weird when the confetti is still falling from the sky inside a building. You can find the same giant fountain around the curve from Sonic Unleashed, only now the fountain's not running. While most of the shops just reuse their 2D PNGs from Sonic Unleashed, there is one shop with a fully 3D interior. Lastly, let's take a look at Planet Wisp. In the beginning area of the level, you can see these wisps flying around. There's also a fairly large grassy area that you can run around just for the sake of it, which is already a huge upgrade from Sonic Colors where you could barely explore the grassy field. There's this one curved rock which really feels like you should be able to run up it, but there's an invisible wall that prevents you. Unfortunately, after Sonic Generations, there's just not as many of these random weird little areas to look at. Even with really well designed levels like in Shadow Generations, there's just not as many of these weird little, almost pointless areas to explore. Though maybe some of these games have have more of these weird areas in the open worlds instead of in the main levels. This was really fun to take a look at. Be sure to subscribe if you want to see more videos like this, and I'll see you all next time.
In this world, gotta make